Yo, what's poppin'? Hey, what's up, everybody? Today is another beautiful Friday, a hot Friday, right? And today I have in the building Dylan Luna. Hey, Dylan.
How you doing? How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I can't complain. It's Friday. It's payday, so a better way to have a sunny day and have some money in your pocket.
Yeah, all of that. So, Dylan, guys, is running for the school board. So, Dylan, tell us how many years are you in for the 6-year position?
Yep, for the 6-year position.
Okay, awesome. So, Dylan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I'm a Flintstone, born and raised. I had left to go to college. Went to Michigan State, hence the hat. And I studied economics and public policy because I wanted to go to law school, but I had a deep passion to also go and come back to my community. But I thought it was very important to be a practitioner on the ground if I was in the working policy. So I decided to be a teacher and I had my first teaching experience in Chicago. And then I spent 2 years in Detroit on the East Side teaching K through 8 Spanish. From then, I came back to Flint and with the hopes of kind of going into policy. So I worked a couple campaigns consulting, and it's just tough to find a job sometimes. So I spent a year and a half teaching in Flint, third grade, all subjects, so science, math, ELA, all that stuff, history. And then I had an opportunity to work in policy. So I moved to the western part of the state, and I spent 3 years working from Grand Rapids, but in 5 states. So here in Michigan, Indiana, Colorado, Ohio, and Wisconsin, on issues like school funding, teacher attraction and retention, and really all things education based. And then in 2021, I came back here in Flint to work as an economic development manager for the Flint and Genesee Group, focused on bringing jobs and investments and capital into our community. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's my day job.
Dylan, it sounds like we need you on both sides of the table. We need you at city council. We need you at school.
I mean,
it sounds like we do in a few places.
Well, I have a good job in my city, but you don't get paid for school board, and that's fine. It's really a civic duty. I mean, we need better leadership, new leadership too, I might add, because there's a younger generation of folks in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s who need to kind of have their shot at really leading people and organizations. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what made you get into teaching? What made you decide to become a teacher?
Yeah. So like I said, I wanted to go to law school to work in educational policy, but I thought it was more important to be a teacher on the ground to really understand education policy. So that's why I chose to teach for 4 years, because oftentimes you'll see that people in Lansing or Washington have never taught a classroom or even worked in the school, or even been in school since they were in high school, and they're making decisions that affect students and educators, communities across the board. So I thought that experience was very important.
Once you started teaching, did it become a passion for you?
I really enjoyed working with students and parents. That was a passion, but it was tough dealing with the administration sometimes, rules and policies, and just the workload. And also the students I taught just had a host of other challenges. I remember one time when I taught my first classroom in Chicago, I taught high school Spanish for summer school. And I had a young lady named Marissa who came in my class, and she was a great student. And one day, we had a break, we call them brain breaks between different activities or projects. And she pulled a razor blade on one of my students named Brett, and I just snatched it. And typically you're supposed to suspend students, and that rule is very rigid. So I really wanted to understand why she had this razor. I just took it and I kept it. And what she had told me, mind you, this is Inglewood, Southside Chicago, right? So this is not the north side where it's nice and sunny and safe. She had explained to me that she had a razor because when she caught the bus, men would try to talk to her on the bus and harm her. So she had the razor on the bus. So I kept it. And I just said, look, you can't bring this into the school building. If you have a razor, you just throw it in the bush before you walk into school, because it's considered contraband. It's an expulsion. So she didn't get in trouble. I talked to the principal, and we kind of solved it. But my point being is you have to understand your students and where they come from. And that really informs, or should inform, leaders who work in government and policy to make better policies for our students.
I think that's important to meet people where they are, regardless of if they're children or they're adults. Sometimes you just have to meet people where they are. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the students appreciated that too. Because oftentimes, when you're in situations like that or you're in places like that, not in the best places, you just kind of tend to throw them to the wayside, right? And you
Yeah.
just follow the procedure without knowing the why. Right. And so a lot of times it's deeper than that. So I'm sure they can appreciate that. Where did you go to school here in Flint?
Yes, I went to kindergarten at Johnson Elementary on the east side. It's off Pearson Road. It's not there. Well, the building's there, but the school is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to school for first through third grade at Washington, at the corner of Pennsylvania and Vernon. That school burnt down last fall. No, sorry, last summer. And then from third grade to fourth grade, I went to International Academy of Flint on the south side, around the corner from where I used to live at.
Right. Okay. Did you go to high school here?
Sorry, fourth to 12th grade. Yeah, I graduated.
From international?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason I went there, my mother placed me in that school because I couldn't read in third grade, so I was struggling. I was at risk of being put in special ed, so she put me in that school, and I really flourished. And then so much that I finished second in my class. So it was a big change.
So, being that we have this issue with the school board here, we are struggling with the schools building. We are struggling with children being in the schools. We're struggling all over the place. How important for you is it now that you have come back to your hometown? How important to you are public schools?
I mean, I think that public schools are the bedrock of society, whether it be from a democratic standpoint, right? Politics and getting engaged civically, but also from the economic stability standpoint, because nobody will invest in a region, city, or town where the population can't meet the professional skills, or when they can't send their children to a good performing school, or a school that's not really safe, or that has aging, crumbling infrastructure. And some parents, unfortunately, have to send their schools there because they have no other choice. Mm-hmm. And that's really an injustice for some of the families we have.
So what are your plans if and when you get elected to the school board? What are your plans?
Yeah, so the cool thing about this election in the fall is there's 5 seats open. Mm-hmm. So that's 5 out of 7. And that's because, there's some full terms and some partial terms. So to me, that's a unique opportunity to elect a governing majority, whether it be 4 or 5 people who are like-minded, to really begin to rebuild trust. I think I'll start with trust, right? Trust is at the bedrock of why I think I'm running and have other folks who are running who are like-minded too, because people just don't trust our leadership at community schools. And I'll break it down from data, and also break it down from a financial perspective, right? Roughly 15,000 students live in the city of Flint. Less than 3,000, and then maybe a little more because, we just started school this week, but around 3,000 choose to attend our schools. That means the majority of parents do not trust our school system. And I say school system because we have great students and we have great teachers. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. Over 70% of the students at Westwood Heights are Flint students. And a good majority, including their superintendent, Les Key, are former Flint school teachers. And those students are doing better. In Westwood Heights, it's the same kids, same teachers, different environment, different leadership. So number one is to rebuild that trust, right? To rebuild trust. When you speak about my priorities as far as policy, number one is to create safe learning, centric buildings, whether that be renovating a school, whether that be building a new school. And mind you, there's 22 plus vacant school properties in the city of Flint that are kind of currently owned by the district. So that also includes eliminating blight, right?
Right.
Washington, I mentioned, I went there for elementary school. It's half burnt. It's just sitting there. It's a risk to not only kids who walk by there, but families. So really having a plan and implementing it as far as getting rid of those properties and making them useful for that community, or selling it to a nonprofit who could do something that's really cool for that. Second is supporting robust wraparound services. And when I say wraparound services, that means wrapping the whole child to be successful. So after school activities, having them food throughout the day, having food for those students who can't eat on the weekends. So having lunch for them for not lunch, but lunch, breakfast, and dinner on the weekends. Having programs that really support the child's talents, whether it be in the fine arts, whether it be in the science and technology, or whether it be in other things that they may not currently receive at their school. But also wraparound services include supporting the community and family, so making that school the center of community learning, whether helping parents get their GADs, having an open, basketball night, gym night for folks to come and have fun, just kind of creating a center where it supports not only the student, but the entire community.
Yeah.
Third is more equitable school funding. So the majority of school funding does come from the state, and then a mix of federal, kind of local, and a little bit of philanthropic funds, but really being an advocate with our state partners to get more funding for our specific student needs. So, and that really, it goes back to trust. If the board is dysfunctional, then why would the state, federal, or even alumni who went to Flint Northern, Southwestern, Northwestern, Central want to give money to support students when they can't trust leadership can spend that money correctly? So really being an advocate. Fourth is really advocating for inclusive, engaging curriculum. So college prep has been a really huge thing in the last 10, 15 years, but data shows that a lot of students don't want to pursue the college route, and that there are other opportunities, whether it be experiential learning where they actually shadow nurses, professors, skilled trade folks, people who can build stuff and make stuff, but really giving students the option to learn new languages or pursue a skilled trades program that pay a lot of money with little debt. And folks always think skilled trades is a bad thing. But think about this. You come out of high school in your skilled trades program, and you're making $28 an hour as a pipe fitter at your job. But then you can do side gigs as an entrepreneur, helping people, small businesses. So really giving students that option, like magnet programs, for example, which there's a couple in the school district right now, but they're not as robust as they could be. And then finally, as a former educator, really supporting and empowering our teachers, because teachers are like the glue that makes education happen. Without teachers, our students are not going to learn. And data shows that so many teachers, in particular in Flint community schools, either are about to retire, or they're not there, or they're getting ready to leave, based off culture, to a large extent based upon compensation, and all based upon trust of the leadership. So really, safe buildings, learning center buildings, wraparound services, supporting more funding, having a robust curriculum, and then empowering teachers. But it all goes back to trust and building trust.
Now, your inclusive and robust curriculum, does that include art and music and all of those things as well?
Yeah, but let me be serious too and honest too. To do all this, you needed to build trust and build partnerships, because the reality is we live in a declining city population-wise, and enrollment that is low. It's not where it needs to be at. So you have to make tough decisions sometimes, but it doesn't mean they're always bad decisions. But really, any decision as an elected official, it's your job to communicate why you made those decisions to your constituents, whether they like it or not. They deserve transparency and honesty.
So, being that we do have a decline in students, do you have a plan, or what could we do in order to increase that, even right now, before any of that comes into place? Because it'll take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, like you said. Do you have a plan?
So I have my priorities, but really, and again, I'll start with the bigger picture, and I'll give you an example, right? I think a lot of us, at least one point of our life, have worked for a boss or company who you did not like or did not trust, either because they did things that were questionable or they just were unorganized. You probably left, right? So number one is having a board that's functional, that you can trust to do the right thing, but also that listens to experts and that is willing to learn and grow together and as individual board members. So getting 4 or 5 folks, really 5 folks elected to that position is important. And I can say people who I'm supporting: myself, Emily Dorr, Teray King, Melody Rutherford, and Michael Clack. So that's how you kind of rebuild trust from parents and students and partners. Number two, excuse me, is working with partners to help us plan the next 10, 15 years of our students and our school infrastructure. Folks who can help us renovate schools, demolish old schools and make that property reusable, but really build new schools. I mean, you look at different schools in and around the city. You have FCCAA by the Cultural Center, and you have schools in the suburbs. These students walk into beautiful schools and they have a sense of pride. Whereas some of our schools, the bathrooms are dirty, they're messy, the ceilings leak. We had one school door rider closed because of mold. How do you have school pride when that happens?
Right.
The school, and let's be real, the school district does not currently have the funds locally through enrollment or through bond millages to build new schools on their own. And I just say if they have to work with folks like the Mott Foundation, um, alumni, and we have some rich alumni from all 4 high schools, right, who want to give money and their time to support things like rebuilding Houston Stadium on the north side, or building playgrounds and parks throughout the city on our property, but they don't trust us. So having those new schools, those renovated schools, and a board that you can trust will begin to stabilize our enrollment population and bring folks back. And you may even attract folks who don't even live in the city to come to our schools. You look at Cass Tech in Detroit, we got folks from Southfield who drive 20 miles every day to attend that school. Mm-hmm. Because they have great teachers, they have a good facility, and they have great sports.
Absolutely. That's another thing. Sports, that was a decline too, because that was always a big thing for Flint too. Just the rivalry between the schools right in the district. So, do you have a plan to even recruit them back as well?
It'll be a tough task, but again, it's really getting those new facilities. I mean, we have great athletes, but our athletes are playing in Grand Blanc, Carmen Ainsworth, Powers. As far as Oakland County at private and public schools,
yeah.
I mean, this city and this district has such a strong legacy of athletes. I mean, we know all of them. You go to Robert Smith, people like that. The Flintstones. There's a young man named Trey McKinney, who's probably going to be the next LeBron in less than 5 years. Mm-hmm. We have the talent. It's just, do we have the facilities and the quality schools to attract and retain that talent? And by the way, we have Houston Stadium on the north side. We have Atwood in Carriagetown, and we have various tracks, facilities throughout the city that could be used to attract those athletes. Even at Central, which has been closed for like 10 plus years, you go there like on an evening during the week, you got folks playing softball, people walking the track, people running the track. People want to use these facilities, but it's really, are they worth updating? Yes, they are.
Yeah. So if and when you do get into this seat, whom else are you willing to, or you wanting to work with in order to build everything back up?
Yeah, I mean, number one, it takes working with your colleagues, right? Because when you're a board, your job is to provide governance and oversight. Your job is not to operate. I think sometimes boards, it's not just Flint, it's boards across the country, corporate boards, school boards, legislative bodies like at the state, the House and Senate. They may confuse their role. Your job is to legislate, govern, and provide oversight, not to operate or to make decisions that are day to day. That's the superintendent's job, right? You wouldn't tell a teacher as a board member what to do. You can provide guidance for the super, but they have to do their job, him or her and their whole team. So really working with each other, administration, and the teachers. I think all three are very important when it comes to setting the vision and implementing the policies of the district. But two, you have to work with parents, the students themselves, okay, community partners, whether it be churches, nonprofits, philanthropic organizations. Guess what? More than half of our students attend charter schools in the city of Flint, working with them too to figure out how we can work together for the best benefits of our students, because the same students that go to those schools go to our schools for the most part. working with the state and the federal government on funding policy, saying, you know what, this isn't working in Flint. Could you change this policy or adjust your funding to meet this need? But again, that all requires trust.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that because I was waiting for you to say that. So how important, or do you even have a plan of how you are going to approach the parents and the children to get their input?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So I actually filed my candidacy back in February, right? So I've been to over 65 community meetings, including parent meetings at Brownell, not Brownell, Brownell and Holmes, Scott School, which is the Accelerated Learning Academy. So I've been to those, I've been to Block Club. So really just listening to these people, engaging with them, hearing them out, and just seeing what their concerns are. And that's how really I developed like my kind of priorities before I printed the materials to pass out, is like just listening and engaging. I'll give you a couple examples, right? I went to one neighborhood meeting on the east side, and they told me that a school board candidate has never come to their Black Club meeting as long as they can remember. And they're less than a half a mile from an abandoned school.
Mm.
I was knocking doors yesterday on the south side off of Atherton Road, and I spoke to one guy, I just call him Will. He was kind of shocked that I took the time to come this early on a hot, muggy day, because it was muggy as, hell yesterday.
Yeah.
And he was really, he took the fact that we talked literally for like 30 minutes. I was kind of shocked he wanted to be in the heat that long, but someone to
Yeah.
listen to him, listen to understand, and then take what he said and really take it to heart. So really, it's engagement, and it's that direct personal engagement, because you can post on Facebook, you can share things, but that's not really the engagement people value. People like seeing you going to them. How do they say? Meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's what I've really been trying to do. And guess what? They may not agree with me, but they respect the fact that I listened and asked and came to them.
How do you plan on getting the children engaged?
That's a good question. I mean, children like to do stuff that gets them excited and something to look forward to. I mean, like when I taught in Flint, really all places, you just can't lecture and talk at students. You got to talk with them, get them out their seat, have them see the value of their work. Um, and that can work at all levels. So, for example, the high school students, kind of getting the student government kind of thing going on, where they have regular input that kind of guides the boards when it comes to student affairs, right? Having fun events at the schools that bring students from different schools, different grade levels together. When I coached cross country last fall at Brownell, um, we had a track meet. It's called Chevy Commons off of Chevrolet and Kersley.
Mhm.
And those students had a lot of time. And someone told me that was the most Black students ever in the city of Flint, as far as they can remember, where Black kids are running cross country. Usually that's like a white person's suburban sport. And it was all young Black kids across the city of Flint. So getting them excited for stuff like that. Mind you, that was a partnership with the CRIM organization, hence partnering with organizations to get kids excited. Finally, I would just see what the kids want to do. You can't give them a 30-page survey, but just go into classrooms, visiting them, letting them kind of articulate what they think works best, what they like, what they dislike, again, meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
And by the way, you see kids all over the place, like everywhere, good and bad. Like you may see kids at church, or you may see kids when you're buying some liquor or alcohol from the corner store playing your numbers, but they
Yeah.
still want to see you.
Absolutely. So it will be important to make sure that when they do engage, that some of those things are implemented, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the things that you're going to make sure that it gets pushed once you do that, to make sure that you are implementing within the realm. I know it's going to be some outrageous things, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like, not to your point, like there's, as far as like the circle of control, there's things you can directly control, like how you communicate and treat people, respect, direct, honest, right? And then there's things you can indirectly can control, right? You can influence the enrollment, you can influence what partners do to partner with you, and there's things you just can't control, right? Like the weather, or in the school sense, you can't control if one day the roof leaks, and it causes an issue. But again, that goes back to planning in advance, right? So you could control that, but my point being is like You have to control what you control the indirects, and then some things you have to address and be reactive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important. And I think that it's important that you said that you wanted to engage with the children and the parents as well. What are some of the parents' concerns right now, besides, not having, enough the buildings around? What are the children's concerns?
You said the parents or the children?
Parents' concerns. I'm sorry, the parents' concerns.
I mean, there's a lot of concerns. I mean, then some things you can't control, right? So there's a lot of walkers at Freeman Elementary, and there's some, not a lot of blight, but there's some blight, in and around that school.
Okay.
Parents don't want their kids walking past blight because that could, be dangerous, both if the kid goes in there, but also people who are not kind to harm them. So like, we don't control blight. That's really a county government thing to the land bank, by advocating to the land bank saying, hey, as a board member, we need to fix this. It's putting our kids at risk.
Yeah.
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 When I was speaking to a Block Club meeting back in April on the west side, I want to say it's Ballinger Court. I was speaking to different committee members, and I spoke to a parent who's actually a librarian, and she had told me she feels like a lot of the leadership doesn't follow through on simple things, right? So in particular with COVID and enrollment, right? Between kids being on online learning and then doing a hybrid learning and then going back and forth, a lot of students got truancy letters during COVID, a lot of Flint Community School students. Why are these students getting truancy letters when we have COVID going on and you're going back and forth? Just stuff like that shouldn't be an issue, and that is from leadership. And that makes parents frustrated. That makes them not want to stay or even come to Flint Community Schools, when that can be an easily controllable factor from the
Yeah.
leadership level.
Yeah. You have a question in here, and from Kevin Tay. Hi, Kevin. He says, "What do you think about Anita Stewart?" It's actually a two-part question. His other part was, "Do you think that Anita Stewart did a good job? She and her husband."
I don't know her husband that well. I've met Anita once and we spoke for about an hour. I think that her number one concern, even when she was a classroom teacher and then as a school leader, was the best in students. And I think she was a talented educator.
Mhm.
I think when she became the school superintendent, she had good intentions. And again, it's difficult. It can be difficult to work with a board of 7 individuals that's dysfunctional.
Mm. Uh-oh.
When you're, am I on there still?
Yep. You're here.
Yeah. So I was just saying, I think it can be difficult as a school leader, as a superintendent, to work with a dysfunctional board, because all it takes is 4 votes and you're fired. So you have to really toe the line. And unfortunately, there is a parting of ways. I think had the school board been more functional and that supported her while she was there, I think she would have been more successful.
Mhm.
Now we have Superintendent Kevlin Jones. I like what he's doing. He's a visionary, and I hope the board will continue to support his efforts and then give them positive and critical feedback in areas he can improve on. But let me be clear, when there's more than 8 superintendents in less than 5, 6, 7 years, that's an issue. Any teacher will tell you, I'll tell you, I used to be a teacher. When students have constant turnover in their classroom, whether it be the teacher, the parapro, the school leader, their classmates, that disrupts their learning. So yes, having all these different superintendents over a period of 7, 8 years disrupts not only the student learning, but the teachers and the school leaders who work in the district.
Yeah.
It's
It's,
unstable.
it's tough to have a new boss constantly. So I
Mhm.
totally understand that, because I think we've all been in a place where the turnover rate was a little high, and
Right.
we've seen, boss after boss after boss, and everybody does things differently, right? So we
Mhm.
have to adapt all the time, and just to be fair, it's not fair to the school district and the children to not have consistency.
Mhm.
So I think that's the thing. So I agree with you there that it needs to be some consistency, because it's not really fair to be inconsistent, especially with a child at that stage of their life and their learning and their
Right.
development.
Yeah, and think of it like a kid who's going through multiple foster homes, right? That kid has so much disruption. Like, it makes them less successful. Whereas having a long-term home, they have more stability. both in their personal life and their mental health.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought mental health up. How important is mindfulness and mental health in the school district for you?
It's extremely important for both the students and educators. I mean, we just got off a once in a lifetime international pandemic. But even before that, our students have really lived a life of trauma. Many of our students, I should say, not all of our students, but they have trauma, right? We have students who come to enter the school building where they're hungry. You know, I had one young lady when I taught fourth grade back in 2017 in Flint. She'd come to school and she'd be tired because she spent the evening. And by the way, she was 9. She was watching her infant brother, like I think he was 3, and then a kindergartner around the age of 5 because her mother worked third shift. And that means cooking, cleaning, and then getting up. And mind you, doing all that and then going to the bus stop and it's like 30 degrees outside.
Excuse me.
You're gonna be tired all day. One time she had a toothache and it just disrupted her whole learning. And that goes back to the wraparound funding for schools having, some kind of dental and medical services in the building itself. And that all affects the students' mental and physical health. So really understand those students where they come from. But then once you understand enough to try to get those needs met, right? Teachers aren't social workers, they're not mental experts, but oftentimes we play the role, but ultimately we need those people in our schools to support us or we can't give the best to our students.
So, with that being said, I know I was a third shift parent for a long time, just so that I was able to, because I was single parent, in order to be able to, attend my children's sporting events and parent teacher conferences and things like that. Um, is latchkey important to you?
Latchkey is good. I mean, you ever heard the phrase latchkey kids?
Mm,
Yeah, you get there like at 5 o'clock, you leave sometimes at 7 o'clock.
yeah,
Um, I think latchkey is important, and if you can make latchkey a better experience for the folks, supervising the kids and the students, that'd be even better because sometimes you just sit there for a couple hours,
yeah,
when it's still dark out, or if it's in the evening when it becomes dark. So having again opportunities for those students to utilize that time, interacting with their classmates, adults, learning, having fun, they'll actually enjoy it and they'll learn something from it.
yeah. So, because I think that, you know, some, as much as people don't like latchkey, is still important because, you know, children are able to get to school then, or able to be
And it
picked.
helps the parents be able to work too. It lets the parents
Absolutely,
bring money home to support that kid.
absolutely. But I do agree that it should be tweaked. There should be some things that changes. They shouldn't just be sitting
Yeah.
vegetating, while they're there. So I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you talked about coaching cross country. There are not a lot of cross country runners anymore. I know we used to do that back in the day. I was actually cross country runner myself. So
Okay. Right.
yeah, where
Yeah.
Beecher.
Okay. Bucktown.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And so it's not you. You don't really hear that anymore. Everybody's a sprinter or a hurdler or that. So you
Yeah.
don't hear too much about cross country anymore. How important are sports to you?
I think sports are one of the most important extracurricular activities a young person can do because it teaches things like teamwork, working with others to achieve a common goal, right? Basketball to get that winning score so you can beat your opponents. It teaches things like self control. I mean, everyone fouls somebody, but I mean, kind of reducing that and kind of pulling yourself back and learning from that mistake and going forward. 3, it teaches discipline. I mean, how many athletes work harder in school so they can be on the team,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Next, it teaches things like mutual respect. If you lose, you win some, you lose some. So you have to really respect your teammates for not carrying you to victory, but also your opponents who defeated you, and also the coaches and people around you who got you there. So I think athletics is extremely important to the students' well-being and success. And if students aren't interested in athletics, there should be other venues like the fine arts, science and technology, things like chess, whatever you name it. But it has to be a menu of things that school students can use to reinforce their main instruction, like math, English, history, social studies.
you're right. So I see there's a few comments about Anita Stewart and the has been or whatever. I just want to remind you all that we're talking to Dylan about going forward and moving forward. I don't want to keep rehashing and beating the dead horse. Like, I get it, putting the information out there or whatever, but I would like to stick to the topic because Dylan is running now, and not kind of get into that. So if we could move forward, because we kind of talking about moving forward and doing things a little bit better and a little bit different. So
Mhm.
I know I usually read a lot of comments in that, but I'm just letting you all know why I'm not engaging in that, because I would really like to make sure that Dylan gets his spotlight, because that's really what this is
Thank
about,
you.
with Stewart. So just to be clear and just moving forward. So are there anything else? Are there any other programs or anything else that may have not been mentioned or may have not been being done that you would like to see or would like to be brought back?
You know what? I'll go into that in more specifics, but I'll just say this. Oftentimes leaders, really people, individuals, have a hard time admitting when they don't know or when they're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
are using like a best practice to improve what they're doing currently.
Mm-hmm.
So what what Flint faces when it comes to declining enrollment, aging facilities, dysfunctional leadership, high turnover in both staff and teachers and principals and leadership, that's not unique to the city of Flint.
Mm-hmm.
There's other communities around the country who have similar kind of struggles and challenges who we can learn from,
Yeah.
bring back and then implement in our own way. The one thing that makes us unique from those communities is the Flint water crisis. And that's when we have opportunities to really hold people accountable to make sure that we have the resources to help our students who, really our families who've experienced that tragedy, right? But again, that goes back to trust. Are they going to trust us to spend the money and resources to help our students and families?
Mm-hmm.
But I say that all to say that we have to look forward, be forward thinking, and be student driven. I love the magnet program, love the community school model, and I think these programs will exist in the future if we have the right leadership in place. But we can't keep looking back and saying we're going to bring it back like it used to be, because there's 81,000 people maybe in the city of Flint. There's 15,000 students maybe, and around 3,000 who attend our schools. We're not 108,000 people no more. There's about 8,000 GM jobs, not 70,000. So we have to redefine what Flint looks like for the next generation. It can be good, by the way, too. It
Mm-hmm.
just won't be in 1975.
Right.
That's being real.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. I agree. So for those that may not know, would you like to explain to them the magnet program?
hmm Yeah, so the magnet program really it's a national kind of program that's unique to each district. In Flint, it was a program where any student could go to a school that offered a specific type of program, right? And I don't know all the ones that were school specific, but let's say, for example, Central offered languages and the arts, and this school offered courses in skilled trades and in sciences, or health related fields.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped enrich the students' learning experiences. So when they finished high school, they could take those experiences. And oftentimes it was including work experiences, college credits, or sometimes certifications. They could take that to the next level. And that really differentiated them from their peers from other communities. And really, I'll just say this, there are a lot of partners out there who want to work with the Flint Community Schools, but they've gotten the cold shoulder from the board. I'll give you two examples. There's a program in Saginaw and at Westwood Heights. Um, in Saginaw, I actually went to the Saginaw facility about 2.5 weeks ago. Those students are dropout students, and about 20% are current students. When they finish this program, they finish with 30 plus college credits from Delta College.
Hmm.
They're getting paid to do this, going to class and learning their skilled trades, but they have a skilled trade when they finish, whether it's pipe fitting, HVAC, they get to choose that route. And they have that relationship with builders and unions. So more than likely when they finish, they'll have a high paying union job. We can have that in Flint, but it takes forming and building those relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that being said, Would you even consider in all of these things bringing the skill center back?
You know what? That's a good question. I think it requires further study on my part and
Mhm.
the administration's part. I know the Skills Center, the last time I checked, less than 5% of the students were Flint Community School students.
Mm,
Um, so it does require some additional thought. And maybe we could do a partnership where we bring the Skills Center program closer to our city because, as you know, transportation to that is an issue for our students. This is not equitable. But again, if that doesn't work well for us, again, I mentioned the program in Saginaw. We could have worked with that organization. They're willing to work with Flint students, but it really is leadership willing to work with them. And that's a fact.
Wouldn't it be lovely to use that old Central High School building as a skill center? All that room and all.
We have a lot of different facilities that are not being used. I've been sitting for years. It just takes us really using them and being creative. I'll give you an example, right? There's schools in Flint. I'm not going to say which one. There's several where the enrollment doesn't justify it being open as a
Mm,
traditional school. And again, that's a hard decision boards will have to make, not just kick down the road, right? And you know these school buildings are losing students
yeah.
every month. You get a report from the superintendent every year, right? You kick the can down the road 3 or 4 times. Now you have to close the school. And while you were just keeping that school open, you were draining other resources from students across the city. If you know a school's in the close, it's incumbent upon you to be creative to address that issue. For example, if that school is 20%, at capacity, put out a proposal to everybody in the community, who's willing to do something about that.
Mhm.
Let's say it's 20% there. We can make that school a third senior housing, a third office for entrepreneurs and nonprofits, and then keep that third for the school. It could be like a small Montessori's program, a small magnet program for K through 5. But be creative about that. Just don't close it or kick it down the road so you have to close it. Be forward thinking and
Yeah,
direct with your constituents.
yeah. So I do like the forward thinking. So in my line of work, forward thinking is always a thing, and we constantly have to be innovative and think of new things and ways to do things that are going to be um, sustainable for the future. You
Mhm.
know, because it's ever evolving, right? And you have to be able to evolve as well. So I really like the fact that you are thinking forward. So with that being said, do you think the whole school board needs to be revamped?
I think there's a unique opportunity to elect 5 new members in a governing majority. Because remember, 2 seats are not up. You can't.
Right.
Those people were elected in 2020.
Yeah.
So that's why given a governing majority is so crucial. I can get elected, and it could be the same people, our new people who aren't really student driven and forward thinking, and they're in the same spot we were, if not in worse positions. So that's why I'm really in favor of electing the governing majority. And there's 15 candidates. There's great candidates. There's more than 5 great candidates. So you have to really make your choice. My
Absolutely.
choice are Emily Dorr, Teray King, Michael Clack, and Melody Rutherford. But you know what? We may not all 5 get elected. I may not get elected. It may be some folks who are currently there. And they're great, right? Some are great at least. You have to work together with anybody to really achieve what is the most important thing, and that's student success and achievement.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I'll tell you, there's folks who I do not care for, don't like, but they would never know. Family, business, associates, because we have a common goal of doing something, right? They would never know.
Absolutely. I think that that's important in getting the work done wherever you are, whether it be the school board, whether it be student council, whether it be any administration or wherever you work at. I think that is very key in getting the work done. So I do like that you think that way. I do, however, think that the school board needs to be revamped because I feel like if you continue to do the same thing over and over, you get the same results, right? And I think that it's time for a change, and there needs to be a change because we cannot continue to operate like this.
No, we can't. If we're spending 2.5 hours where we have 100+ points of orders and points of information, first off, they're misused. They need to go to training. Some of these folks, you keep doing these things. But more importantly, you spent so much time saying points of order, points of information. I heard the word student achievement not once.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Becky Brown had an interesting comment, and I agree. She said FCA boards needs 2 parent spots. Are you in favor of having parent spots?
You know what? I think parents add an important value, and I think it's worth exploring because I mean, the parents are the ones enrolling the students into the school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how that works with like their bylaws or like election laws because I just think it's difficult to do. I think that may be a state level issue, but I think it's worth exploring, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you never know. I mean, you can't keep the same thing. You got to revise all the time. Like
Yes.
some cities have an at-large council mixed with like a by ward council, or some boards have school boards have like at-large councils, which are every seat's at large, but then some are district, and those bring their own benefits and drawbacks. So I mean, I'm open to listening. That's the most important thing is listening.
Mm-hmm. Even if they don't, even if there is not feasible to have 2 parent spots on the board, um, would it be fair to say that you could even look into having like a workaround to have them as part of the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can definitely. Again, I went to 6 parent meetings as I have a spreadsheet of all the meetings I went to. I went to some schools multiple times. I just use Brownell Homes. There were some parents there, right? And I'm glad they were all there. I went to another school there. There are some parents there too. You know what was missing at those meetings, those parent meetings? School board members.
Ah, mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Yeah, yeah. That's a gap that needs to be bridged, right?
Hmm.
I believe that that's a big gap that needs to be bridged. So, I think that that's important that to be able to work at that. You know what? I would totally tell you that I live in Beecher. I graduated from Beecher, and I when Beecher had taken their decline in the curriculum and things, and they were on the verge of closing, and that I had taken my children out because for one, my son wasn't doing what he needed to do there. He
Hmm.
wasn't getting what he needed, and I needed to take him where he needed to be, somewhere different, right?
I'm so glad you mentioned that too. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No worries. I ended up placing them into Westwood Heights. We moved actually because really wasn't open like it is now. So we moved in order for them to go there, and they flourished, and they had it.
Hmm.
It was so much different, and I think it was just as you said. They were innovative. They were forward thinking. They were moving in a different way, and there were so many parent groups and all of these things to give this input and to have a seat at the table, not necessarily at the school board, but there were so many things that for them to have input. I think that that was really a thing, and there was and the difference was is that you've seen so many parents working there, like working and doing things here and there and everywhere. I they used to, I worked third shift, so when they asked me about being on the parent board, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. However, I did contribute because I ran the concession stand for. I ran it for years,
See?
right?
But
Yeah.
but see that's the thing right there is the culture and trust, right? If the culture is supportive and engaging and listening and communicating, parents are gonna want to get involved in whichever way they can, like you did. I'll give you an example. The school I taught at in Detroit, we had what's called a parents' room, which is
Mm-hmm.
opens from about 5 to sometimes 7 because parents come after school. You can go print there. You can go do job searches and apply for jobs. You can go on Facebook and drink coffee and engage with the other parents. Some parents went and printed stuff for the teachers. They helped in the classroom. So like really creating that space, at the physical space and the communicative space for parents to get engaged is important. Um, if you watch some of these board meetings, I wouldn't want to get involved as a parent when they're just arguing and yelling. Like, why would you? You got
Mm-hmm.
more important things to worry about. And also, parents love hearing good things about their students. When I taught, like, you can get kind of caught in just calling parents when like the student is not doing the best in class. Like, what do you do now? And I'm like, well, actually, Mrs. So-and-so, the young man actually got an 85 on their test. They got a 55 last week. So I know he got his Xbox taken away for the weekend, the last 2 weeks, but could he please get it back? Because he's been amazing behaviorally and academically. We got some work to do, but he's on the right track. Parents like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that can come from the teacher, that can come from the board member. Because guess what? The board members have access to data. If you talk to the parents, if you know the students, who wouldn't want to get a phone call from a board member about their student's success? Or a letter,
Absolutely.
a letter.
Kevin Tate asks, "Do you have yard signs?" He is in great support of you.
Thank you. No, so because there is no primary, I have to wait 40 days prior to November 8th to get yard signs. But I can definitely get you a yard sign, Kevin. Just shoot me your information on Facebook.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we all need to do that. We all need to make sure that we are in support. Um, so speaking about making sure that we are the positive with the children, are there some programs that you want to implement to maybe highlight the positive in the students? Because I don't think we get enough of that. I think we hear so many other things. I don't think that there's enough highlighting the great things that some of these
Yeah.
are doing.
There's some great things we could do. Number one, so we have the graduation and we highlight our students on social media in person. But there's a lot of things that I just don't see anymore. I'll give you an example, right? Mayor Woodrow Stanley had a thing called the Student of the Month program. I wasn't smart enough to be in that program or lead it when I was a kid, but I grew into that. But stuff like that really, really stick with students. I have people who are in their 30s, 40s who remember that program, and it really touched them and made them want to be a better citizen and really want to give back to students. But the district could do something similar, right? You could highlight parents, you could highlight students, educators, and really highlight the hard work they're doing on social media with a letter, with maybe a gift card, some kind of thing. This stuff doesn't cost that much money, by the way, either.
Absolutely not.
I mean, people love to be given legitimate, prestige and acknowledgement.
I think that that's a great idea, even not for the students, but for the parents and the educators too, because I don't think we do enough of that too, because there are always some parents that absolutely do everything. Like I ran the concession stand. I was the president for like ever. And then I was the vice president. And then I moved back, you have to bounce, bounce, bounce. And I did that. And I have two children that graduated there. But I spent 13 years at Westwood High School, running concession stands for 13 years.
People remember that. Parents, I'll give you an example, just like you did. So I had recently lost a friend. He had passed away last week. And his wife was the teacher to several of my siblings. And my mom used to make like these peanut butter sheet cakes for like sporting events and for like students and like, birthday parties. And that was like, as far as 15 years ago, she did that and she kept doing it. And people still talk about this peanut butter sheet cake and can do it with Luna. And guess what? She made it for this, this funeral luncheon. So I'm sure teachers, students remember you doing stuff like that. And it really sticks with them.
You know what?
And it made you feel good too, being that person doing it.
Let me tell you what I'm gonna tell you what they still say. I seen one of the kids before, and he's like, "How come you don't come to our games and make popcorn?"
Prime example right there, live.
Yep. So we did, and I was innovative. Like, and the reason why I was so innovative in there is because I worked third shift, right? And I was hungry, and I didn't get to go home and cook dinner. So, like, we had walking tacos. We fried chicken in there. Like, we did all kinds of stuff. We had nuggets. We had pretzels. Like, we had like hands down, we had the best concession stand in Genesee County, hands down, and we heard it all the time. But that's because I was hungry and I worked third shift. And I needed to eat.
Look, you don't got to explain to me at all.
So we had to think outside the box, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, and it's amazing at how many people that you end up touching, not even knowing that you're going to do this, and you think that's all you're going to do, but you end up building these relationships with children, with parents, and all kinds of things. So it was important to me to continue to do that. So I just encourage any parent that's listening to just get involved in something. Because that might not be your thing. Sports might not be your thing, but maybe going forward there'll be a chess club, a debate club, or something like that that your child is interested in, to just make sure that you're being active in it, because it's really fulfilling. I can honestly say that. And as tired as I was and all of that, it's really fulfilling. So it's even fulfilling now. I was at Target last night and I saw two of the kids that graduated. My daughter, she's 25, and so I saw them doing. They're like, "Hey, mom, what's up?" That's a good feeling to know that you are that impactful. They remember you and that you can do this. So I just encourage people to make sure that they do that. I also want to encourage people to make sure that they do make educated decisions when they are placing people like you into these spots, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my reasoning for wanting to bring you on, so that people can hear what you want to do and your vision and where you see us going forward. So I appreciate you very much for doing that.
Thank you for having me on here and kind of sharing your story about how you've been engaged. Because this is a prime example of why parent engagement is so important and the impact it has years later, and how easy it is for parents to find their niche, whether it be a job constraint or they may not want to do this, but they may want to do that.
Absolutely. I just it's important, right? It's just really important. So with that being said, Mr. Dylan Luna, what closing do you have to say?
Yeah, I would say, again, thank you for having me on. I think it's a unique opportunity for us to elect a governing majority this fall, 5 new board members. And I just say that, things may seem tough, whether it be the crumbling schools or the constant teacher turnover or the dysfunctional board. But, we can definitely, as a community, begin to change the course and the vision of our district. And it really takes people voting, but also being engaged. And I would say for folks running, you really have to engage parents, students, teachers in the community to want to be a part of that positive change. Because you can have a great vision, but if no one believes you or that vision, it's not going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was absolutely a pleasure being here with you and being able to talk to you. So hopefully, if there's anything that I can do, please let me know. Reach back out to me if there's anything that you need to say or do going forward. You are always welcome. We can always schedule something going out. Hopefully,
thank you.
We all together to do it again. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate you being open to let us into you a little bit.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Know you a little bit. So hopefully we'll see you more going forward. We'll have you again coming on as it gets closer and closer, right? We'll continue to do that.
I'd love to.
The other people that you had that you are endorsing, who are Emily Dorr,
Teray King,
Melanie Rutherford.
Sorry, I can talk fast sometimes.
Rutherford, right?
Yeah, okay. And then Michael Clack.
Wonderful. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Yeah. So I look forward to going forward and doing things again. So you all make sure that you keep Dylan Luna in your mental Rolodex, right? Continue to watch him. Go and go to his page, like his page, request him as a friend so you can continue to watch and see all of the things that he has going on going forward, as well as those other people that he mentioned. We'll try to have them on as well. Actually, I have some dates coming up soon, so you'll be able to see some of them going forward. So make sure that you look out for that. Make sure that you continue to make educated decisions, guys. Educated decisions. Don't do it just on name recognition and all those things, as I said before with the other election that we just had. But make sure you're making an educated decision, and to make sure that we are moving the children forward and we are having their best interests at heart. We have to take everything out of it and remember that these children are the ones that we need to be focused on, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, you guys know that I am like a huge advocate of mental health. So I want you to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, you are living on yourself, and you are just embracing yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. And what is better than you? Absolutely nothing. Nothing is better than you. So take care of yourself. Make sure you are eating healthy. You are drinking your water, not Flint water, because Flint water is not clean, but make sure you are drinking your water. Absolutely great job, Dylan. Make sure that you are getting at least 30 minutes of cardio every day. And guys, I see Dylan likes to bike. So you guys, if you want to bike with Dylan, or you need some,
I biked the Bluebell this morning. It was 12 miles round trip.
I saw that. So So make sure that you are doing that. Make sure you are going outside and you're getting some sunshine, getting some of that vitamin D and breathing in all of that good prana, right? Make sure that you are doing everything in love and with love, because that is what we need going forward in the world today, right? You all have a magnificent weekend. I love you all, and I will see you soon. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you so much.
Bye.